Hello, and welcome to Chasing Fi, Chasing Financial Independence. This is Melanie, and today I'm going to talk about 5 ways that we reduced our food cost. I know I've talked about this a little bit, but because food was the biggest expense that we had to do a lot to reduce the cost. As we planned our journey to financial independence, we started to be more mindful of what we ate and how much we spent on food. So it's also been a journey toward better health. So it's not just like the financial side of it. We're actually very mindful of what we're eating. So we're eating healthier food, we're eating less, and we're thinking about what the food does for our body. We're thinking about what type of fuel am I giving my body right now. So it's been a really great opportunity to improve on our lives overall. So here are 5 things that have made a major difference in our budget and in our lives. The first thing is we grow a garden. So I recommend that everybody grow some type of garden. I mean, I don't care what you have to do, something. You need one. Not everyone has land, but if that's the case, check to see if you have a community garden in your area. Or you can grow things in containers in your apartment or condo. If you don't have much room, there's a link to a great book, Urban Gardening, that will help you navigate growing in small places. It's by a YouTuber who does a fantastic job. He has a great channel called Epic Gardening. And if you're in a small space, he's got tips for you. So there's a link in the description for the book. So the things that we have grown that have really been great, I mean, because they're so versatile: tomatoes, kale, potatoes, onions, apples, spaghetti squash is fantastic, and peaches. Those have been the best items for us, or I guess the ones that we use the most. This year, we had a major drought in our area, and our garden suffered a little, but we were still able to get a decent yield. Of course, when you have a garden, you're going to come to the point where you need to harvest. So you need some place to store the food. So keep that in mind when you decide how much you're going to grow. If you're using a community garden or you're growing in your apartment, just keep in mind that when it's harvest time, you want to have a place to put this food. In the past, we've planted too much because it's just 2 of us, and we have the space to store it, but you don't want to have, like, for example, if you freeze food, you don't want to have it sitting in the freezer for like 5, 6, 7 years. So just be mindful. If you live alone or in an apartment, you probably could just go with like if you want to grow tomatoes, maybe go with 1 or 2 tomato plants, maybe a bucket of potatoes, a kale plant or 2, things like that. Some of these items like kale is one of my favorite things. I love it because it's so versatile. So, for example, I use it to make pesto. I make up a bunch, I freeze it in an ice tray, and then I just put it in a little baggie. And when we want pesto pasta, we have it in the freezer. I use the kale for salad, kale chips, soups, stir fries, everything. So after you blanch it, you can throw it in the freezer and it'll be there for you to use for months. So our garden has helped us reduce the amount of money we spend on food, and it's organic. We don't use any pesticides or anything. We haven't had too much trouble with pests in our garden other than aphids sometimes on our kale and things like that. But if you're out there watching, something like aphids, you can actually just spray them off with a strong stream of water. You can also use some organic things on your vegetables. If you are having trouble with pests, depending on the pest that you have, there's all types of different recommendations. So that's just something that you probably want to look up for your area. But if you live in an apartment, which, I lived in an apartment for a long time, and since that was the case, I'd find organic produce wherever I could, like farmers market and things like that, and I would freeze it, store as much as I could. So even if you live in an apartment, don't completely blow off the idea of having a garden. Like I said, there are community gardens as well. There's one right around the corner from my house. So check in your neighborhood, see what you have. You never know. There might be a place where you can, use a lot and plant your stuff. So another thing that we did, and this feeds right into the first one, things that we can't grow or don't grow in our garden, in our climate or whatever, we just find inexpensive organic fruits and veggies. So this is something that I have been doing for about probably 20 years. So back in college, at one point I was really sick and I kept going to the doctor asking for answers and things like that. And I finally ran into a doctor who was like, what are you eating? How much water are you drinking? How much sleep are you? You know, she was just asking like, are you taking care of yourself? And so she recommended that I switch to as many organic fruits and veggies as I could. And it totally changed my life. Like my problems were gone. No more mystery illnesses that they were trying to diagnose me with. So because of that, I spring for organic fruits and veggies. I understand it's going to be a little bit more, which seems in a way counterproductive to the journey for financial independence. But even when I was very, very poor, I always went with organic fruits and veggies as much as I could because I just feel better. And I think that, you know, what's the point of being financially independent if you feel terrible? So, but of course, if it doesn't bother you to eat the conventional, you can also get the conventional and clean it. Get the pesticides off, but whatever your choice is. I mean, obviously that's something that you can choose on your own. So over the years, I've found ways to acquire inexpensive organic produce. For example, we live in an area that used to be full of apple and peach orchards. Some of those trees are still around, and not everybody uses the fruit they produce. So we have permission to go and gather apples if we like from our neighbor's property. They also said we could have their grapes. And another neighbor stopped by and said, hey, I got these peaches. We don't really use them. You guys want them? We're like, yeah. So this is something that, like I said, for about 2 decades, if anyone asked me if I want free produce from their garden, the answer is always yes. I don't care what it is. I don't care how much it is. I just say yes, and then I'll deal with the problem. If I have too much of it, I'll give some of it away or something like that, but I always say yes. So this may sound strange, but this ties right into this. You need to make sure that you are connected with like-minded people in your community. There is so much food out there. I mean, seriously, so much food, not just produce either. But you have to let people know that you're open to receiving the surplus food. Now, not everybody lives in my little wonderful neck of the woods where people just show up at your doorstep and drop off food, but you can find ways. So when I lived in Ypsilanti, Michigan, I shopped at the farmer's market. They had 2 during the week, and I would go to those because they were smaller, and there also was a co-op. So I went there as much as I could too. So that's a great way to support your local farmers, and you also get to know people in your community. For example, if I was still there at the end of the farmer's market, I almost always got something at a steep discount or free. Of course, I was happy to pay for whatever they had, but the farmers, they were super nice. And if they just had like a surplus of something that a lot of people didn't show up, they didn't want to take it back with them and they didn't want it to go bad. And they would just say, hey, you know what? Take this. You want this? So, I mean, like, it was actually great because I could go there. It was kind of like a social event for me. I could go there and talk to people and hang out, get to know the farmers, and they were just very generous. So, you know, like that's a way for you to make connections. People know, hey, you want this? Okay, well, I'm not going to use it, so you can have it. So buying organic fruits and veggies has become increasingly easier over time. So we get the Misfits Market basket during the summer we didn't get it that much, but now we're going to be getting it every 2 weeks during the winter, and it provides a variety of produce for about $40. You get to choose the produce, and it's like just like an orange that's smaller than what stores would want. That just gets thrown out. So Misfits Market, they collect organic produce that people aren't going to use, or the farmers they're getting rid of because it doesn't look as pretty or it's not as big or whatever. It's not uniform. And they sell it in boxes and you get to choose. So you go online, you pick what you want for the week, you pay, it's usually about $40. And it lasts us about 2 weeks. So, I mean, obviously we supplement it, but we already have produce at home. So this has been really great for us because we spend $40. We have produce for 2 weeks. So $20 a week on produce is great. We supplement it with what we have and we really save a lot of money. And we get to eat healthier foods. So if you want to check out Misfits Market, there's a link in the description. Or, like go to your farmer's market, go to the co-op, find the community garden, anything. Just find a way to get some produce that's inexpensive or free. I'm telling you, there's so much out there you would not believe it, and most of it just goes to waste. So keep your ears open. Another thing that we do, this is something that has been huge over the past, year and a half, food storage. So while prices are going up and shelves were bare back in 2020 and things like that, we were fully stocked on things because we have been doing food storage for since 2017. Well, actually, my husband always did it, but once we got married, we kind of stocked up on things, and he grew up with that type of lifestyle where you make sure you have everything, you have backup. And when the pandemic hit, it was amazing because people were like, "Oh, I can't find this, I can't find that." We had a little mini grocery store in the basement. So we were just like, okay, we've got everything. So that was really great. In addition to, we stock up on spices and flour and sugar and things like that. We're big on canning and freezing. So we're lucky to be in a place where, we have the space in the basement and it's like a little grocery store. It's really great. And we also have neighbors that, like I said earlier, will drop off food for us. And the previous owners, they this is in Utah, people have food storage. It's pretty standard. And the previous owners, they left these food storage racks. So we didn't have to, set up, buy any racks or anything. And we just moved into the washroom. We created a little food storage area. If you don't have any racks, you can always you can look online. We have a newspaper here, was really just a website now, but ksl.com, we find stuff on there all the time that people are getting rid of, whatever your local paper is, or marketplace, Facebook marketplace, I guess you could use too. Go find you some racks, set them up in the basement, and stock them with things that you use on a regular basis. So this is, like I said, it came in handy for the pandemic, but it always was very handy to have. Another thing is that we're missing out on a lot of the inflation because we don't have to buy certain things right now because we already were stocked up on it. So there's a savings there. And, we take deals whenever we can find them. We have case lot sales here a lot because people do stock up on food. So if it's something that we use, say chickpeas, we'll buy a whole case of it and stock it up, and then we're good for a long time. The other thing is that you need to check in your neighborhood and your community, because there are certain things that just people don't know about them unless they're talking to their neighbors. For example, just 2 days ago, our neighbors came over. They kept bringing us stuff. They were like, "Oh, we have this extra lettuce. Would you like it? We have this extra hummus. We have this extra cereal." And we're like, "Yeah, cool." Well, the second time that they stopped by, they said, "Hey, there's a little co-op kind of, that this guy started during the pandemic because his wife couldn't find stuff at the grocery store, and he's getting surplus food from grocers, and he has it set up like a grocery store, and you donate $5-10, and you go in and you shop." Which is so cool because people are getting cases of burgers and, a pound of cheese, things like that. So it's amazing. And our neighbor, she just was like, "Yeah, you got to like their Facebook page, and they'll just put up a post and they'll say, 'Hey, we are going to be open from 2 to 6. It's really sporadic. It's when they get deliveries. It's not like a regular store where you'd go and set hours. So it's if I didn't talk to my neighbors, I would have no clue. I would have no idea that was a thing. So really, you need to You need to be in contact with people who are like-minded in your community so that they know that you're looking for these things and that you're like, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're trying to save money. We're looking for a way to become financially independent. And you'd be surprised what you find. Another thing is food prep. This is huge. One of the items that our neighbor dropped off was hummus, like I said. So we got carrots and celery in our Misfits box, and I was thinking, you know what? That's a lunch. That's a dinner, like this free hummus with some carrots and maybe some pita bread. Well, I don't have any pita bread, but I have all the ingredients to make pita bread. So because I'm planning meals for the week and we're having hummus 2 days from now, that means I have time to make the pita bread and it's not something I have to rush and do. So instead of going to the store and paying $3 because the pitas that I like, they cost $3. $3 for a bag, probably $6 to get 2 bags because we really like these pitas. I can try to make my own pitas and they're not super hard. What are we talking about? Flour, whole wheat flour, all-purpose flour, olive oil, salt, yeast. I can do that. Water. I totally can do that. So because I'm doing food prep, I set up a menu and I think about what I have in the house. I'm not thinking about what can I go and buy and make? What do I have here? And it helps me be creative with my meals and just come up with some things that I would never think about. Another thing that our neighbor gave us was some iceberg lettuce, which it's not really something that I normally eat, but like I said, I don't turn anything down. So we took the iceberg lettuce and I thought, oh, you know what? We have some sausage and some ginger and some onions and maybe I'll throw a little sesame oil in there and, soy sauce and fish sauce. And we had lettuce wraps. What did we have? We had carrots. So I just threw it all in a pan, sauteed it. It was delicious. But, obviously I have some recipes for lettuce wraps that have other ingredients, but I was just thinking, I don't want to go to the store. I want to use what I have on hand. And I did that and it turned out fantastic. So here is the menu that I'm making for the next week. Monday, we're going to have oatmeal crumble for breakfast, kale salad with cilantro lime dressing for lunch, pita and hummus for dinner. Then Tuesday, we'll have the leftover oatmeal apple crumble because usually when we make breakfast, well, really any meal, we usually have leftovers unless we have a second portion, which sometimes we do. But we'll have the leftover oatmeal apple crumble, and then we'll have a romaine salad for lunch, and then a pork stir fry. Then on Wednesday, we'll have a breakfast burrito. We love these breakfast burritos. And then we'll have the leftover pork stir fry for lunch, and then pita and hummus for dinner. And that should be the end of the pita and hummus. On Thursday, we'll do breakfast burritos again. I'll do a kale, onion, and potato stir fry. And then we'll have cheeseburgers on the grill and homemade fries. On Friday, we'll have oatmeal and peaches. Just oatmeal and peaches in the pot, little water, cinnamon, nutmeg, little honey. And then we'll have a kale and romaine salad for lunch. For dinner that night, we'll have dill pickle soup. And actually my dill pickle soup, I'm going to make it with the dill tomatoes that I have in the basement because guess what? It doesn't really taste any different. There's just like a different texture. That's all. So I'll use the dill pickle tomatoes. And then on Saturday, we'll have an oatmeal bake and then the dill pickle or dill tomato soup. For lunch, I'll do a veggie stir fry for dinner. And then Sunday, which is kind of our, fancy meal day, I guess, we'll have French toast, pesto pasta. And then for dinner, we'll keep it light because the pesto pasta, we'll probably end up eating that for lunch and dinner. But if not, we'll have the last of the dill pickle soup or a salad, depending on how we feel. So that is a menu that I have everything that's on that menu in the house right now. I don't have to go to the store for one thing on that menu. And that's my goal, because there are times when we were going to the store because we had cravings or whatever. But now, because we're thinking more about it, we're doing the meal plan, and it makes a huge difference. So that's our plan for next week. Another thing that has really changed our lives and put us on a road to financial independence is the fact that time is precious, and we realize that now. So this is such an important point. When the day is done, it is gone forever. This is something I had to learn the hard way. I'll give you an example. When I lived in Michigan, money was very, very, very tight. At times, I would drive around looking for deals or hunting down coupons for items. While this probably saved me a penny here and there, it took time and energy. Now, I just take the coupons that come from Smith's, which is Kroger's in Utah, and I don't worry about hunting down the deals. Why? Because the time that I spend hunting down the deals could be time that I'm spending with my husband, I'm spending with friends, I'm writing, I'm building my business. The time that it takes to do those things does not balance out with the savings that you get. So what I try to do is just be more mindful, and then I'm not always chasing some, harebrained scheme that's going to save me a penny. So I will do a quick search online, just a quick Google search, nothing special, no apps or anything. And I'll just see, okay, right in my area, if there's an item that I'm going to get, I'll look at the prices. But that's all I'm doing. And if it's a little bit cheaper at Walmart, I might drive the extra few blocks there, but rarely. Usually I just go to my neighborhood store that I can walk to, get what I need, and I'm done. This is another thing that I had to learn the hard way. I think about the days when I spent all my time, like split between 2-3 jobs sometimes, and it never got me anywhere. So I realized that we're programmed to think that we should be going to a day job, but a good chunk of careers have limited opportunities. Every now and then I check out the jobs in my area because I was a teacher, so I keep on hearing about this great resignation and, how everybody's quitting their job. And I'm thinking like, well, wow, I wonder if the salaries for teachers have really come up. No, they haven't. They really haven't. Now, there are a lot of openings that are popping up, but they're paying about $2,000 more than what they were paying for full-time teachers back in 2017, the last time I was looking. So I realized that my small business and me just being mindful about what I'm doing around the house, what I'm eating, how much electricity we're using, things like that, those things actually have more potential to get me to financial independence than taking on a job. I mean, the success of my business is entirely up to me. It's basically like, how much am I willing to do? Jobs don't have that potential. When I was a teacher, I worked extremely hard, 7 days a week. And that's no exaggeration because I was lesson planning and grading papers on weekends. In fact, Friday afternoon, I would come home. I'd get home about 3. And my husband works in the evening. So I would spend most of Friday night grading papers. And then Saturday, I had to have a chunk of time so I could lesson plan. Sunday, I had to have a chunk of time to make sure the lesson plans were good and ready for the week. So now looking back, I realized that I could have been, because I worked at charter schools, I had to create the curriculum that we were using. Like, I had some materials, but I had to make up the lessons and things like that. And I think back and I'm like, oh man, I could have been creating lesson plans for myself, putting them online and selling them to other teachers. That would have been a better use of my time. But back then I was thinking, you gotta have a job. But now I realize how much time I waste there. And it didn't get me anywhere. So time is something you can't get more of. So it's important to recognize that there are certain things that aren't worth your time. Another example, when you're trying to save money, make sure that the suggestions that you take are worth it. Someone on YouTube had suggested that a place in Georgia where they buy used electronics and books. So you go on the website, you scan your items, and they send you like an estimate. So I did that. And I mean, I spent one evening like going through boxes of books because my husband, one of his relatives had died, and we had a bunch of her stuff. She had tons of books that I don't even think she'd ever touched. But we were, looking to get rid of them. And I scanned them all, and I get this estimate, and it's pretty low. And then you got to wrap it up, take it to the post office, send it off, and then you got to wait weeks and weeks for you to get any payment from it. The payment did eventually come, but it wasn't that great. So I got frustrated with that, and I just stopped doing it. And then my husband was like, why don't we try the resale shop in town? So he goes out to the resale shop with a box of books, and he comes back, and it's 3 times what I made from a much larger shipment that I shipped off to Georgia. So it's not that it was bad advice. It was just that I had a better option right in my neighborhood that I didn't look into first. I just went for the online situation with this company, and I should have just gone looking around town. Once again, this is why it's important to be connected in your community. So these are the strategies that I've used and that have really made a big difference. Let me know what strategies you're using to reduce food costs on your path to financial freedom. Until next time, be good, and I'll talk to you soon.